On tonight's episode of Phinside The NFL, it's night one, part one of the creator panel that all of you guys voted on. We have Alain Poupart from SI, All Dolphins. We have DouglieDoWrong. And of course, my hosts on Wednesday night, Richmond Webb and Mr. BallGame, who you guys all voted on. We're going to talk about everything under the sun, Miami Dolphins, as we are a little under a month away from the opening of training camp. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Deep upfield down the near side, that open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's going over a touchdown again! Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one, and I'm joined by a fantastic group of gentlemen here for night one of the content creator and journalist panel for all of you. First of all, I want to say before I get you guys, opening thoughts here, I want to say I thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your evening to come up here because the fans legitimately voted for all of you guys back in February. So, giving the fans what they want. I want to say I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out to give the fans what they want. I appreciate it very much and respect you all for doing it. Richmond, Dougley, BallGame, Alan, how are you guys doing tonight? We'll start with you, Richmond. How are you doing? As we're still finding ways in the lull of the offseason to give the people what they want and create some good content. How are you feeling just under a month away from training camp? I knew about 30 years ago you'd be sitting here soaking it up in the sun on a beach, drinking a Miami Vice. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, you're right. Well, no, 30 years. I thought you were going to say 20. Yeah, 30.
Almost. I almost called myself.
Out there sweating, trying to get ready for the season. But I'm doing good. Glad to be a part of this this panel, and I know the fans definitely appreciate you putting together 2 nights of guys just gonna share and get their thought process on what's going on. And for me being a former player, I always feel good to be in the group with guys like content creators and people in the media and stuff like that, because I learn from you guys, and then I can kind of share a little bit. But most of the time I have to take from a player's perspective. But I'm actually doing pretty good and excited to be on the show tonight. So I'll pass it on to the next guy. I'm ready to go. So who you got up next?
We got Dougley next. But how you feeling? You ready for that World Series, that College World Series, or what?
It's over, bro. We lost game 3.
You lost.
a reason. And then the bad part about it is our coach went to our arch rival school the next day. So that's like something right now, but I'm still repping my A&M. I got my A&M shirt on, so it's gonna be all
brother.
Right.
I'm a Blue Jays fan. And if you remember back in the 80s when Bobby Cox was coaching the Blue Jays in the middle of a series with the Kansas City Royals, when we were up on them, he announced he was leaving to the Braves the next year. And then if you remember in 92, we beat Bobby Cox coached Braves for the World Series, for our first World Series. So, man, it's a dirty game. But hey, everyone, like the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase said, everyone's got a price, brother. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. Dougley, how you doing, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good. a little dead. Obviously, we're talking about a contract here and there and everywhere. There's nothing else to really talk about. But yeah, it's pretty dead. The storm outside just hit, so if I blink out, you guys know why, because there's apparently a crazy storm just hit New Jersey. So, but other than that, I'm doing really good. I'm excited. I love doing these panels with you guys.
Yeah, we had a crazy thunderstorm today. I was walking home with my youngest, and she's like holding her ears while the thunder's going. It was nuts. So, man, let's hope we don't lose you to a twister. You know what I mean? Ball game. How you feeling, brother?
All good, man. This is a crazy
Headphone. Bring your headphone.
There we go. This is the crazy part of the summer, man, where everything kind of goes into this black, this black lights out sound, no information, whole bunch of crazy theories, time framing. I just kind of like disassociate myself from most of the social media stuff because everybody got their opinions on what's really going on, but really and truthfully, it seems like a whole bunch of people just out here, keeping foolishness going as opposed to just telling people, hey, we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but they'll get it all figured out. And let that be the case because this is business. At the end of the day, we always talk about that. It's just business. So for me, life's good, man. It's always good to be up here to share perspectives and talk football. And, it's always a good time. So Wednesdays are our days anyway. So it's good to have the other two gentlemen up here with us to share their perspectives too. So let's get it.
I appreciate you coming on, Alan. It's 4 years in the making. You were one of the first guests I had on this channel back in 2020 when I started in March 2020. So I appreciate you coming on. How are you feeling? I know Twitter has its days, but how are you feeling being in the lull of the offseason right now, getting ready for everything to ramp up next month?
Here's the thing. When you're the publisher, operator, owner of a website devoted to the Miami Dolphins, there is no such thing as a lull. And if you check out the site, si.com/NFL/Dolphins, you will see basically we're averaging about 4 stories a day, sometimes 5 that can go as much as 6, about everything and anything. The latest one was about the Jacksonville Stadium situation and what it means for the Dolphins' next scheduled road game against the Jaguars in 2027, which is the year when they're going to be away from their stadium as the renovations are taking place. So they're going to wind up playing at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. They're going to be playing at Camping World Stadium. They're going to be playing in London again. And I'm going to throw out a quick stat here. I shouldn't be giving out my written content info in here, but just for everybody and just for your reason, the Dolphins have played 4 games. This is per my research, 4 games that were not in Europe, but were away from a regular home stadium, and they're 4-0 in those games.
Do you think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to play a lot of their schedule in London because of Tony Khan and the Khan's ties out there?
No, I don't. That's the travel becomes like
crazy.
Difficult, but they can go as much. But per their contract, they can go two home games in Jacksonville once every 4 years, and they'll do it on the years when it's the AFC that's got the 9th home game, and that happens to be next year and then in 2027.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, let's hop right into it. I know everyone's probably exhausted by it, but I just want to ask a simple question. Obviously, the big news is what broke yesterday about the Jeff Darlington report. Then you had Schefter come out today and give his opinion. I just got a simple question for you, and I mean, we'll start with you, Dougley, I guess. This is a simple question. When you look at this situation right now, what does your gut tell you? Who caves first in negotiations? Tua Tagovailoa's camp, the Miami Dolphins, or does this play out on the 5th year?
If I gun to my head, I'd have to say the Dolphins. I think, to me personally, you look at the roster right now, and I don't think Tua will sit out. I don't think he'll sit out of training camp. I don't think he'll sit out of the season. That's just not him as a person, how he was raised. But I honestly think that it's more the Miami Dolphins need him than he needs the Dolphins, because you look at Mike White, right? I have no faith in Mike White. I have Skylar Thompson. I have more faith in Skylar than I do Mike White, just because of what we've seen from Mike White. But if Tua's not out there, some people have, predicted them winning 10 games, some people think 9, whatever. If Tua's not out there, I see them winning like 5 or 6. He does give them that little boost in the scheme and how he's, they build to his strengths, whether it's his accuracy, anticipation, all that stuff that Kurt Warner talks about. So to me personally, I think it'll be more on the Dolphins side of things, but I still think it'll get done before training camp, and I'm hoping they can come to some understanding. And it's just the little things that are missing. I'm hoping.
So you don't think he holds out, but do you think he holds in like Christian did last year and like he did, a bit during OTAs?
Yeah, I think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be a team leader. I think he's going to still chat with, the young guys that were drafted, like how he's working with the Washington receivers we got, and he was still working with OBJ and all that stuff. But I think when push comes to shove, we might not see him in 11-on-11s. We might just see 7-on-7 and stuff like that for the first week or so, like Christian Wilkins did, because again, same agent. So they might be telling him, do what Wilkins did. Go, don't get fined, be there, be at the meetings, go through walkthroughs, this and that. But then when it's time to do bigger things, just take a step back, because God forbid he gets hurt, everything goes out the window. So I think he'll do a sit-in, worst case scenario.
Richmond, you've obviously had multiple contracts at the NFL level. You've got now not as crazy as they are now. But what are your thoughts on this and how you view the situation and everything you've taken in? How do you see this ending? Do you see either side caving, or do you see this as a thing where we play on the 5th-year option?
I don't think it'll go that far. I think it may take a little longer than what Tua wants. Like, if the best case scenario, he would probably want it done now, where all he has to do is go into training camp and focus on, getting ready for the season and working with the guys, this and that. I think at the end of the day, it's just that uncertainty that when you don't have your contract done, you don't have that sense of security. So then, like Dudley just said, you might go out there, but you're concerned on if you go out here and you're trying to work and show good faith, but then you get hurt, then your value drops tremendously. So I think he definitely wants to get it done. I think you shared earlier that his group is sometimes hard negotiators or whatever to get along with. But at the end of the day, if you reach a number that you're happy with as a player, you always got to remember they work for you, they don't work for you. And like you said, if it just got all outright ugly, do you want to go somewhere else and play? Or are you truly happy with the local? I didn't want to move and stuff like that. So if you can work it out, and I think the guy that I had represent me was more of, I ain't gonna say buddies with the Dolphins, but he was, probably like a Lee Steinberg type of guy, like you mentioned earlier, that, hey, yeah, we can work this thing out, but, let's get it done. But I think it'll get done. I think it's just going to take a little longer than that. And hopefully Tua can just be a little patient and the Dolphins give a little bit, they give a little bit and get it done. I think everybody will be happy.
Listen, I don't blame you for not wanting to leave South Florida and end up in Cincinnati. On top of that, you compound that, you went from Dan Marino to Achilles Smith. I don't think anyone blames you for that, brother. Alan, how do you see this playing out? Like, do you see either side caving, or do you see this where, okay, we're just going to play on the 5th year and they settle it in season, or they tag them, or they figure it out next offseason?
Okay, well, I have to start with this, and I promised myself I wasn't getting into any Tua debate of any kind beyond the strict conversation at hand. But Dougley, as much as I love you, you forced my hand.
Here we go.
And we'll just go ahead and respectfully disagree. And not that I disagree with the premise that the offense wouldn't look the same under Mike White. That's clear. I agree with you. But this notion to me that it falls apart and the Dolphins become a 5-12 team, sorry, I'm not buying it, and not for a millisecond. And then the next question I would ask is, how do we know? And it's cool based on what you've seen, for you not to have faith in him. That's cool. But here's the thing: how do we know? It's not because he had 3 garbage time appearances last year. We don't know. And then if you even look before that, his time with the Jets, it's basically, if you look at the history of his starts with the Jets, it was a couple of really, really good ones, a couple of really, really crappy ones. And are we going to suggest that Jets personnel around him was anywhere near what he's going to have with the Dolphins if he's called into duty? So that out of the way. And this has come. And by the way, I want to reiterate again that no, the offense will not be as good, because I know the comments are coming and to a hater is at it again and all that. I know but it says where it's nuance. Again, I think it's a fair question. How do we know that Mike White could not operate the offense with a certain amount of efficiency? As for your question, here's the thing. Like Tua basically drawing the line in the sand when he's saying the market is the market really didn't help. If we're going to be honest, that didn't help. And I can't help but think if the Dolphins were willing to meet Tua where he wanted to go, why would they have waited for other quarterback contracts to get done? And ultimately, obviously, I think the biggest issue I think we can all agree on is the amount of guarantees. And because despite the fact that Tua played 17 games last year, he's still not somebody where you look at him and go, well, no problem. He's going to be durable. He'll be there in 6-7 years. I think ultimately, and Tua's put himself in a position where if he eventually does cave in, does anybody come back at him and go, well, whatever happened to the market's the market? I still think ultimately that would be preferable. Backing down a little bit from the stance he took, I think still would be a little preferable to him than playing on the 5th-year option and then having the possibility of a nasty injury a la Connor Williams, for example, having that bite him in the butt.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to take a stab at this. I think the reason why no one has faith is because when you look at how this offense is built and you look at all the elite intangibles Tua has and how this offense is catered to the processing, to the timing throws, to the anticipation, to the middle of the field tight window throws, I think we look at the guys we have in-house and you look at them and you can't look at either one of those guys and point, okay, any one of those things is a strength of those guys. It's like, if you're going to move off Tua, I really think, in the draft or whatever, or even in free agency, I guess, McDaniel would look for a lot of those similar intangibles because, we're in an offense where it's highly touted, it's highly productive. We know coaches' egos and how they work. They're just not going to totally veer off their vision. And I really think it's because of a lot of the things that are asked of, for this offense to run at the efficient rate it does are things that Mike White and Skylar Thompson, from what we've seen, those just aren't their strengths. It wasn't the strength of Bridgewater and either. I think that
again, how do we know? And here's the thing. Yes, I'm going to go there too. Even with Teddy Bridgewater, how do we know? Do you know he never played a full game for the Dolphins? Do you know he never played as much as 3 quarters in any game with the Dolphins? And again, and you talk about the timing with Tua. Yeah, it's great. But Richmond, correct me if I'm wrong here. That's how many practice reps of Tua with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle where it becomes like this because they practice it and they rep it so much. And you don't think there would be some tweaks for Mike White? Again, we can agree to disagree. This notion that to me the Dolphins go from 11-6 to 5-12 with Mike White, I'm not buying it because Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, and Devon Achane don't get any slower with Mike White. And it's not like Mike White's going to be completely incapable of getting them the ball. So that's just me.
Just back on the Bridgewater thing. I know Bridgewater games they started, not games they came in and finished, but games Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson started. Waddle's yardage went down about 20 yards per game. Tyreek only went down about 10 yards, but they didn't.
Excuse me.
They didn't score a receiving touchdown in any of those games that those guys started.
Reason, if you're going to throw out stats, I'm going to throw out this one. Tyreek's yardage with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback in 2022 projected to 2,300 yards over 17 games.
I'm talking about Skylar and Bridgewater.
Skylar was a rookie 7th-round pick, dude. Come on.
So is Brock Purdy,
who is a unicorn. Come on, how many Brock Purdy's are there?
System, but why? Because he had the intangibles. He has a lot of the intangibles Tua has. That's why you're seeing the success in that offense. Correct,
and Skylar doesn't. No offense to Skylar, who I like's a really good guy, but
yeah.
Why is he being used
that's the issue, right? That's the issue. He doesn't have those intangibles. That's the issue. And we're not going to all sit up here and act like Bridgewater was the guy he was when he was with the Vikings before he got torn up.
I'm not, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this offense is built to help the quarterback put up big numbers. And please, and I never include Skylar Thompson in the conversation because to me he's not.
Well, he started games, right? That's why he got included.
They had no choice. But again, that's not somebody who was on the practice squad last year. No, sorry, he made the roster because of the rule.
Yeah, the emergency quarterback rule.
Correct.
Yeah. Which he's probably going to make it again this year because of that same rule. I would assume.
The rule, they changed the rule. You don't have to be on the active roster.
Oh, did they?
Correct.
Oh, so Gavin Hardison has a real shot. Ball game. What are your thoughts? Do you think either side caves on this, or do you think this is a situation where we play out the 5th year and figure it out next year? Because none of us have really talked about if you play it off in the 5th year. He's flirted in the MVP conversation the last 2 years. What if he finishes that conversation off? And what if he wins a playoff game? Everyone's balking at 53, 55 million. Cap goes up next year. All of a sudden, we're sitting at 60, 65.
To be honest with you, bro, I don't think the Dolphins really and truthfully look at it from the vantage point most of us do. I think business is business, right? And you set yourself up to understand that if the guy goes out and has another amazing year, then you got to pay him according to then at that point 3 years worth of what you've seen from him in regards to, you know what I'm saying, highly moving himself higher and higher up the importance of the ladder in regards to those top 10 guys that we be talking about all the time in his performance. At that point, you have no choice but to go through the process of negotiating with him and putting him in that range. And I don't think that's really something that they haven't sat around and thought about as well. But I hate the process when it comes down to people sticking mics in front of these guys' faces and then asking them these questions over and over again, and you can tell they're visibly, you know what I'm saying,
irritated
and irritated by it. And then they make a statement, and it's hard then because it's out there and people are going to use it as soundbite. People are going to use it against him, and if he does decide to walk away and back off from that statement just a bit, now they're looking at him like, you know what I'm saying, like he did something wrong when all along business is business, right? He's already signed to a 5th-year contract. We already have him under contract, and really at the end of the day, no one really has to do anything to be truthful with you, right? If they do sign him early, it gives them some benefits for cap purposes and things of that nature. But letting them play it out, you take the chance just as well as anything else. They did it with the guy previous to him, and they probably feel the same way about it too. His representation needs to be the ones, in my opinion, that got to go through the process of bridging the gap between where they are. If those things are really that big of issues for them, then go back to your client and ask him, are you willing to give up a little of this to be able to get this in action so that we can get past it? Because all it's doing at this point is making things a little bit more contentious amongst everyone. And I just think for the greater good of what they're trying to essentially accomplish this year and move forward, the less you have of that, the better chances you have of being in a harmonious place where everybody can get along and then just move on smartly and not have to worry about it. He's going to get paid at some point regardless. But, you know, it's just a matter of when and how much it's going to be, you know. And
go ahead, Alan.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make the point that when Tua came out for his minicamp media session and he was asked about his contract, he easily could have said, I don't want to talk about
like he did with QB3, right? Like what he did with the quarterback school stuff, right?
So correct. So what he said was a message that he absolutely wanted out there.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you this, Alan, because I haven't had a chance, and then I'm going to ask anyone else if they got any final thoughts on this. Did you take him as being frustrated with both sides? Because did you look at it a little sideways when he started talking about his agency and how he doesn't want to hear about every little update, every little detail? Well, how did you take that? How did you perceive that?
Dolphins pay me. Where's my money? That's how I took it. What's taking you so long to give me what I want?
Yeah. Dougley, you got anything to add? Richmond, you got anything to add before we move on?
I didn't see it.
No, I'm just talking about in general from what we've all discussed right now about the Tua contract stuff. If you got anything to add, that's all.
The only thing I'll add, and it's just a little bit of a pushback, is the reason I said I don't feel comfortable with Mike White. It's because of the limited things I did see against backups. When he came in, he threw a pick 6, and then, you know, it was just the little things here and there. And then the stuff that I saw in New York where he was doing really well, like even when he had the weapons around him in Brees, in those guys, and he couldn't get in the end zone. I was just like, those are the little nuances. And obviously he could come out and Mike McDaniel could be Mike McDaniel and make him out to be really good. But I just don't feel like taking that chance, especially in a year where we don't know how much longer we're going to have the weapons we have.
Yeah. That's the sticky part, right? We're in a window right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the Hammer says if Tua plays on his 5th year, his signature role will be dried with another team. Fact, like Wilkins, like Hunt, like Kirk Cousins.
That's not. Yeah, sorry to make that assumption is not right. and then there's
I'm not buying that.
And Richmond, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Tua plays on the 5th year option. He's going to be pissed. Has a great year. Dolphins come back next offseason. Tua, here's the contract. You're going to make your rich man here, and you're going to stay with Mike McDaniel and with all those weapons. Do you think Tua for a millisecond is going to be like, nah, you dissed me last summer, I'm leaving?
Or they franchise tag you. You know, that can happen too. Yep. I've been there, done that. So it's, you know, like I say, you got to be willing to take that risk and that gamble. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, just be a man. You made the decision. Let it be your decision and not somebody else's. And whatever happens, you got to be cool with how the chips fall or whatever. But you got to be a man about it. If you made that decision, you know, that's what I decided to do. It didn't work out like I wanted to, or it did work out like you wanted to, but I was willing to take that risk. But I'm hopeful that, and I truly believe that they're going to get it done. I don't think it's going to get, but yeah, that is another option, but I think they're going to get it done.
Well, to Alan's point, money talks, BS walks, right? As the old saying goes, right? So, now speaking of the offense, sticking with the offense, we'll start with you, Alan. What are your expectations in week 1, in year 3 for McDaniel's offense after we've seen what they've done over the first 2 years?
I don't know what my expectations are that for the first few months they're going to kick ass because that's what they've done, and I don't know what's going to happen down the stretch because that's been a problem the last 2 years. And until we see something different, why are we thinking it's going to be different once you get to December and January? And it's like, it's either the time of year because the games become different, more intense, more physical in December, January. The weather gets worse. Teams have more film on you and then have come up with more ways to defend you. But the Dolphins need to come up with counter punches when their quick passing game with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle is taken away at the end of the year. And this is where you hope that the additions of Odell Beckham Jr. and Jonnu Smith can help in that department. It would help to me if they had a physical element in the running game, which they don't. The running game is stretch it outside, get misdirection going. So my expectation is the offense is going to be good. Is it going to be good enough at crunch time in December and in January? I honestly don't know.
Do you think Wright adds that element they're looking for?
It's just that adds more depth and a successor to Raheem Mostert down the stretch. But I don't necessarily think Wright plays a ton of snaps if nothing happens to Mostert.
BallGame, what are your expectations for McDaniel and the offense in year 3?
Well, we've seen a gradual increase in productivity over the last 3 years, and I think this is the final year of the major installs of some of the other wrinkles that are going to include the seam threat of Jonnu Smith and all those different things that we haven't had that could indeed, make this offense extremely potent. The question still becomes, like Alan said, is down the stretch later in the season when Mike going to be able to get out of his own way and stick to a script that makes sense, And if you do have a team on the ropes where you are successfully clipping off 4, 5, 6 yards of carry, do you not get pass happy and then go through these spurts where you're actually putting the ball 100% in Tua's hand when you've got the team pretty much dead to rights, in the ground game? Some things just because they're not necessarily pretty and fan favorite. You know what I'm saying? The game, the objective is to win the game, and is he going to get out of his own head and stick with what's working until the team forces you to change it, or until you just bludgeon them to death until they just fold under the fact that you're going to stick to your guns. And that's what I think in terms of growth is what he needs to do to become exactly the coach that I'm hoping he becomes. Because if you got a team, you know what I'm saying, if the jab is working, why would you go away from it and start throwing uppercuts?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can win a game. I mean, you can win a boxing match jabbing the shit out of somebody for 12 rounds. You know what I'm saying? And beating them to death if they don't have a defense for it. So
yeah.
Football is a complicated. Well, it can be complicated if you don't know what you're doing, but it really ain't that deep when you get down into the X's and O's of it. So I think Mike is the biggest thing, and like Alan said, if he can't get out of his way, then that's where we're gonna struggle because those games matter when the weather changes the most. So.
Yeah, and to Alan's point, like over the last 2 years since he got here, one of the expectations we've had on this channel is, okay, we know you're going to come out hot. We know you're an offensive genius. That's all fun and dandy, but what's your counterpunch going to be when you start seeing teams in your same division twice in a row, like, 2 times in a season, like Belichick, and when you start, and we're like Alan said, when the tape starts to get out on you, what's your counterpunch going to be? What's the wrinkle you're going to throw that they now got to defend and they got to worry about? And I think the most disappointing thing over the last 2 years is it felt like McDaniel hasn't had that counter in his bag. And I mean, I don't know, how hard this team needs to get smacked in the mouth for him to realize, oh crap, I got to change things up. Now, could that be because the running backs aren't healthy the last 2 years by the end of the season? Last season, Tyreek Hill, maybe because of volume, usage, whatever, his body started breaking down. Waddle was battling injuries. We didn't have the seam threat. Omar Kelly would come up here all the time, and I'd tell him, next year, I'm telling you, they're going to get a seam threat. Don't worry about this Julian Hill stuff. They're going to go get someone because that's the next step. And sure enough, that's what they did. The third option, they couldn't rely on Barrios. They couldn't rely on, Cedric Wilson, et cetera, et cetera. Is OBJ going to be the answer? I don't know, but I think we're all waiting to see the genius counter punch when we're figured out. That's what we're all waiting to see. And to both of your points, you got to start finishing games off more in December, in January. Dougley, what are your expectations for the offense in year 3?
Definitely to take that next step. I think it was around Christmas time when Greg Olson was talking about the fact that he talked to McDaniel in the third years where they start implementing more of the tight end.
Yeah.
And, you add a threat in Jonnu Smith and then you add OBJ, I think he realized that, look, you take one of my guys out and Waddle and Tyreek Hill were on the field at the same time. I think it was 40% of the time last year. So you took one of them out, and then you had Braxton Berrios, you had Craycraft. It wasn't anything crazy, or Cedric Wilson Jr. Now you have OBJ. Now you have Jonnu Smith. That's something that you can really start to take advantage of, especially with Jonnu with his yards after contact. He also, like BallGame said, he has to get over his stubbornness. Sometimes it's not real. Wouldn't say stubbornness. I'd say more try to outthink the opposing quarterback or opposing team, where he's like, they're expecting us to run here. Let's like in Kansas City Chiefs, 2 rushes get us down to the 31-yard line. He throws it 4 times.
Yeah.
Like even with it just made no sense why you would get away from it. At least get closer, run it one more time that next time. And if they stop it, all right, then try to do some different stuff there. And then also you have Tua. 3rd year. This is the first time in his career he's been in offense for 3 straight years. Last year, he was out there audibling the touchdown pass against the Giants. He changed it. His first year, he was telling Tyreek Hill what routes to run. The second half of the Ravens game, the comms weren't working, and McDaniel was talking about how Tua was improving. So there's a lot of things that are going into now the 3rd year of the offense that we're expecting more. You came out your first year, we were good, we were better last year. It's now you have to take what you're doing really well, and then, like BallGame said and Alan said, at the end of the year, that's where you need to start implementing those things. And I mean, one of the things I kept talking about, and I kind of get laughed at, is I wouldn't be surprised if Jonnu Smith might take snaps at halfback on 3rd and 1, goal line, something like that. He took 29 snaps with the Atlanta Falcons in the backfield. We don't have that big back. Why don't you get a guy who's really good at yards after contact, put him back there, 3rd and 1 or something? can pitch it out to him, whatever. So I think there's going to be wrinkles that we haven't seen before, and I think it's because now Mike McDaniel has the weapons he needs, and he's going to implement it.
Richmond, you've been in high-powered offenses before during your career. What are your expectations for year 3 under McDaniel and Tua in this offense?
Yeah, for me, the first thing is injured and staying healthy. If we do that, even though we had that slump in the second half of the year, we still made it to the playoffs. But barring injury, my expectations are to make the playoffs and at least get a win in the playoffs. I agree with what everyone else said. I do believe that McDaniel's going to have to learn to make adjustments quicker, especially in the second half of the season. Like you said, the first half, it takes people a while to kind of catch up with you. And then when you recognize somebody is figured out or has something that counters what you do extremely well, what you've been exposing other teams with, you got to say, okay, they figured that out. I got to go to something else. So that's definitely going to be key. And like you say, he's added weapons and this and that. And then no matter how potent your offense is, there are going to be times you get in games where you're going to struggle against certain teams. So then that's when your defense is going to have to step up. And then there are going to be certain games where our defense might struggle against guys and the offense has to step up. So that's why it's a team game. But as many weapons that we have on offense, we should win most of the battles. But I think what people should really be paying attention to, and I think Alain said, he said, not the first half, but the second half, how we respond, how we make those adjustments. I think that's going to be huge. But I expect us, as long as we stay healthy, I know you're not going to stay completely healthy, but as long as we majority stay healthy, I'm expecting playoffs. And that's where I'm at, because I think it's time to make that next step.
Yeah. Tua 9-7 in his career in December, 1-3 in his career in January. And those 9 in December, 9-7 in December, Flores helped that record a little bit because it's not so great under McDaniel right now. All right. So on the flip side, ball game. Let's pick your defensive mind. On the flip side, what are your expectations for Weaver and this defense in year 1? When you look at his tree, kind of going back, stemming from a lot of Rex Ryan principles, aggressive hybrid type of defense. The Mike McDonald defense seems like the new wave, kind of like how the Shanahan offense was for offenses in the NFL. What are your expectations in year 1? Xavier Howard's gone. Kendall Fuller's in. Year 2 of Cam Smith. The linebacking group is, as good as it's been since Kiko Alonso was here. What are your thoughts on your expectations for year 1 of this Weaver defense?
Well, to be honest, I don't think that the growth curve for this group is going to be as extreme as some of the others. Like when you switched over from Flores to Fangio, you were talking about 2 different complete philosophies in regards to defense. And now with Weaver coming in, these guys have already in the past, the vast majority of them came from Flores being a high pressure guy. You feel me? So learning how to blitz and knowing how to blitz, once you understand spacing and alignment and assignment, those things come back. That's muscle memory. So I don't think they'll have a problem with that. He's definitely a high pressure guy, so that's gonna make the defense a lot fun. But they brought in guys that understand the responsibilities outside on the boundaries that they gotta lock up. They gotta be responsible for, and they're not gonna have a lot of help. Fuller and Ramsey are 2 of the best at being able to isolate guys on the outside and take those advantages so that you can actually have the pressure packages not become a detriment to your defense. And leaving holes that have to be filled by guys that don't understand what's going on in the scheme. Most of these guys, most of the stuff that he's doing, like with Brooks and all this guys being there for the voluntary OTAs and all that other type of stuff, the language is already being put in place. Now they're digesting it over these next couple of weeks so that when they actually get in the training camp, they can all get on the same page. So I think coming out the gate, he's not going to, a lot of things are going to be kind of basic, but there'll be some wrinkles early on in some of these games that you'll see that will remind you of and give you some excitement about what's to come down the line as the season progresses, because of the fact that the skill gaps, right? like when you bring a guy like Calais Campbell in, Calais is going to be one of the best teachers for everybody up front, right? Even though Zach Seiler now has made a name for himself, you can't find a better 5 tech in the league than Calais Campbell. You know what I mean? A guy with that type of experience coming in to offer wisdom to all these young guys. And the great part about it is that they know who he is. They've seen what he's done in the league, and they're going to listen to him. It's not like you got a whole bunch of guys out there that's never proven themselves or that don't have a name of them being hard workers and being responsible inside the defenses they came from. That's not Calais. That's not Walker. That's not Jordan Brooks. All these guys are around because they're quality football players and they're high IQ guys. So I think this year in particular, even though you got a new coordinator, I don't think they stumble out the gate as much, and they'll actually be able to present some things that are going to give some people some challenges. And the defense is probably going to be a little bit more ahead of the offense during the first couple of weeks than previous years before, because Fangio's defense is pretty complicated when you think about it behind the scenes of how it all breaks down. But this one with Weaver is probably a little more simple, but it's complex enough that it's going to confuse most guys, right? And he's smart about who he's blitzing, because if you look at the history of how Baltimore goes through and how they look at sending pressure, it's all based on the quarterback. The quarterback proves he can. If the quarterback has proven time and again that that's something he struggles with, that's what he's gonna get a heavy dose of, because you want a guy rattled early and you want to be able to capitalize and take advantage of it. So, I don't have any other expectations other than defense winning championships. So I think that as they grow together, this is a very crucial point for defensive players right now. Even though they're resting up and relaxing, he's giving them the terminologies. They've seen most of the install stuff, so now they just gotta when they come to camp, all they gotta do is just play fast at this point. So and nobody's not privy in their guys at this point to what they're gonna be looking to run in the first 4 weeks of the season anyway. So those guys are digesting all of this right now, and they talking through Zoom calls. They on the phone with each other. They asking each other's questions. So when they tie back into him, he can answer and fill in any gaps for any things that they have. And then when they get out there, you know what I'm saying, and just the helmets and shoulder pads, they can run and play fast. And I think you're going to see a surprise that the defense is going to be dialing up a lot of pressure early. So,
I mean, to your point about the pressure is predicated off the quarterback. I mean, you look at the Ravens last year in week 2 against the Bengals, for example, about 22.8% of their time they played in cover 1. It was the majority. That was the majority of the coverage they played that game.
right.
And they only blitzed Joe Burrow about 11.6% of the time. The next week against the Colts in week 3, again, predominantly cover 1, but they blitzed the Colts about 51% of the time. And then week 4, they play the Browns, and they're predominantly in cover 3, cover 4, but they only blitzed about 14% of the time. So it really, truly is a hybrid defense that's going to depend on what the quarterback, and like you said, their ability to adapt and what they've shown on tape, their ability to handle pressure, right? So, Dougley, what are your expectations for this defense?
I'm excited about it because I like Weaver and I like the guys he's learned from, Rex Ryan, Martindale and McDonald. But I always give it like a few weeks into the season. I did it last year with Fangio, but BallGame makes, a very valid point in the fact that, Weaver came in and they probably sat him down and was like, who do you need? And he probably gave him a list of, I need this type of linebacker. I need this type of safety. I need this type of corner. And they went out and got him. And, he now has Fuller next to Ramsey, and Fuller, I love X. He was one of my favorite Dolphins, but he's an upgrade because X wasn't 100% for the past 2 years. And, Fuller did his thing last year. Bringing in Calais Campbell, a guy that knows who Weaver is and, knows what he can do. I think that the pass defense is going to be good, and I do think we'll get after the quarterback more because we were talking about, blitzing, and I like how it is that, hybrid where you don't know, hey, we're going to be facing a rookie quarterback. Oh, we're going to give him, this disguise look. We're going to blitz, we're going to drop this guy back, blitz from a different level, mess with him. But what still worries me is the run defense. I don't think the run defense is going to be as good because we lost Christian Wilkins. And I don't know if you can replace the production at run defense that Christian Wilkins had. It's going to be that hockey style of that defensive tackle next to Sealer because we have like 5,000 of them right now. So I think it's going to be good. If they can just at least give me top 15 defense, I'll be ecstatic. But I think it's gonna take a minute.
I'd argue that if you look at the guys that they actually targeted and they brought in, one of the key things about those guys was the fact that they played sound run defense. They weren't, there was not your pressure for the pass coverages and things of that nature will come from the exotics, but what I'm saying, overall, guys like Tart and most of the guys that they brought in, Campbell, all those guys,
Neville Gallimore even.
Neville Gallimore, they thrive off of being run stoppers, right? So it's just a matter of how who's handling the rotation, what it is going to be in terms of down and distance and situational defenses. Now that stuff's got to be worked out, but that's all in accordance to what Calais Campbell said. He said that we was a great judge of character. He allows guys to play free, and he trusts them to know what their jobs are. And that's really all you can ask when you got a defensive coordinator. He dialed it up, we go execute. Simple and plain. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Point, shoot.
Yeah, exactly. No one's sleeping on Benito Jones, Robert Thomason, but he's a better interior rusher than he is run stopper. I mean, that's been his MO since he came out of college. Richmond, what are your expectations for Weaver and this defense in year one?
Yeah, I think our defense should be solid. Didn't know a lot about him, but I've learned, this is the second time, I guess, at a defensive coordinator position. So I'm sure he's learned. And from the first time, I think he was at the Texans, y'all told me earlier. So, working there in Baltimore, that's a good organization. They've always played great defense with the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm sure he's took some of those things and brought it with him. And like you said, he's assembled guys, like Dudley said, and BallGame said, he probably gave him a list of guys that he needed and you bring in, and it makes it easier to kind of run the style of defense that you need to be successful. So, if they're a solid group, which I think they are, you got enough veteran leadership and guys that can step up and make plays. I think we should be fine. And the other good thing was he was sought after by a few more organizations. So it wasn't like we were the only people that were trying to, get him to become defense coordinator. So that always makes me feel good when you're in demand more than just one organization is trying to hire you as a coach. So I think we'll be fine. I'm not concerned about Weaver. I think we'll be good.
What are your expectations for year one based on everything you've heard and everything you've seen, Alan?
Well, I don't want to repeat what everybody else just said. The couple of points I want to make is, to me, I'm not concerned about top 10 defense, top 15, top 5, or whatever. I want takeaways. Mm-hmm. And if you look, that's what made the 2020 and 2021, the more 2020 defense special was all the takeaways they had. They led the NFL, I think it was 29 of them. And that was partly a result of the high pressure that I certainly hope we see coming, because this whole sit back, and it's not like Fangio never blitzed, because there were some blitzes and there were some very strategic blitzes. Lest we forget, they clinched the Chargers game with 2 blitzes on that last drive by the Chargers. So the Dolphins did blitz, certainly not as much as they did under Boyer and under Brian Flores before that. So I want to see that. I also would anticipate we're going to see a lot of 3 safety looks. Whether it's with Marcus May joining Jordan Poyer and Javon Holland, whether it's maybe Kendall Fuller, or maybe even Jalen Ramsey being used as a safety once in a while, because those guys can do it and they have done it in the past. And then the other biggest issue for me, the X factor that could turn this defense from, I would expect it to be solid, where to me the possibility for it to become really good, and this is the big X factor on defense, is how quickly and whether Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips can go back to being Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips after the injuries they had last year.
Yeah. Good point. What are your expectations on that? You expect Phillips to be, all indications seems like Phillips might be back before Chubb. And I'll ask you this, Alan, what are your thoughts on Chubb, and with the cap situation coming up down the line, do you think this could very well be, we're getting into the finality of Chubb's run here in Miami?
They have a lot of players whose guaranteed money ends after this year. Tyreek Hill is one of them. Bradley Chubb's another one of them. Teron Armstead's another one of them. So I think a couple of those guys will be gone. And this is where you look at the addition of Chop Robinson. It's much easier to say goodbye to Bradley Chubb and his big contract if Chop Robinson has shown you, that he can do the job.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's get into training camp here for you guys. I'm going to go around to each one of you, and I want to hear, give me your player to watch at training camp and a potential surprise cut at training camp for you. And we'll start with you, Doug.
I'll start with the surprise cut. This is going to kind of go back to what me and Alan were talking about.
Mike White. Are you? Wow.
I guess he really does believe in Gavin Hardison. I wasn't lying.
Hey, if Skyler comes out and Skyler looks really good and he looks good in preseason, you save about $3.5 million cutting Mike White. So it's like, I don't know what it is. I've seen him in the Jets, and I know he's been with banged up teams. I just have no faith in that kid. You come in at garbage time and you throw that pick 6. That's when I was like, oh, we're screwed if we lose Tua. But joking aside, a surprising cut would probably be like, but it's not even, I don't even really think there's one. I think that, to me, that would be the biggest surprise is if they move on from Mike White and we're like, Skyler, you're going to be the backup. We're going to save the cap, bring it over, whatever, even though it's $3.5 million, it's nothing. But yeah, because there's Jeff Wilson, which is a possible move, but that's not something surprising, really. Yeah. Eric Izukoma, those aren't really surprising moves of being cut. So yeah, that would be, I guess that's the only surprise.
Who's the player you're watching the most heading in, and no one say Tua because of the contract situation, because I know that's going to be the cop out for everyone. Who's the player you're watching the most? Because I'll tell you mine, Malik Washington, because I think he's going to ball.
Oh, I can't wait. He's going to be dangerous. I'm looking at Aaron Brewer. I want to see what he can do. I know he's really good at the run blocking, but to me, that the sacks he gave up is a little bit. I'm hesitant to be worried about it because he was blocking for a rookie and he was blocking for Ryan Tannehill, who we know has horrible pocket presence. So, when I did watch him play against the Dolphins with Christian Wilkins in his face, he actually did pretty well. So for me, it's Aaron Brewer. I want to see how his snaps look because I'm still very queasy over Connor Williams and then Liam Eichenberg with the snaps. And I want to see how he does with Sealer, with Calais Campbell, with all these guys coming at him with the stunts and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, you know what? I'm interested to see if they show their hand a little bit in training camp and you see him pulling a little bit because, the Titans had him doing that. I want to see how quickly he gets to the second level because we know how quick he is. I just want to see what they do with him because he's a little bit better of an athlete than Connor Williams is, and his footwork, he's a bit speedier and a little more fleet of foot. Richmond, who is the player you are watching heading into camp, and who is your surprise cut?
Yeah, I thought long and hard about a surprise cut. I guess I didn't necessarily come up with a player. A surprise cut to me, I think Dudley brought up Mike White. That would kind of be one bit. It would be surprise to me is when you expect a guy to be on the team and then all of a sudden he's not on there. So it would have to be somebody I hold in pretty high, regard to say, no, this guy's pretty much a lock. So
would a surprise be for you if Tajay Washington and Malik Washington make the team and it's not a cut, but you're still kind of cutting them, you're just trading them, and they trade, and I'm doing this for cap purposes because you got to trade them for cap purposes, and they trade a guy like Braxton Berrios? Would that be a surprise to you?
You're taking my stuff.
Not because you got the wide receiver room is deep already. So
not really. Okay.
That's why it was so hard. That's man reason coming up with these hard questions and sending me this stuff. I said I'm going to get that, brother. But the answer to your other question is, for me, it's going to be that right guard position. I mean, I know Robert Hunt left, this and that, but Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson, that was an all-pro right side. And when you lose a guy of that caliber, because if we would sign him, we'd have been there for years. You got Austin Jackson. That was a special combination. So I'm always biased offensive line, but I'm going to really be watching that right guard position and seeing how much of a drop off, or is it, going to continue like that? Because, and we talked on the show last year, is about when we had all those injuries in the interior of the offensive line, it definitely affected the running game, the passing game, and everything. So a lot of people pay attention to your tackles. You do have to have them, I agree. But if your interior is not as strong as it need to be, it can be just as big as a problem as your edge. So with us losing Robert Hunt, man, that's what I got my eye on. And not saying we can't get it done, but I mean they did damage. Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson. I was watching them early in the season, and it put a definitely smile on my face. So that's the position I'm going to be watching to see how that pans out.
And Alan, who's your surprise potential cut, and who's the player or the position you're watching the closest come training camp?
Are we noticing that Doug Lee departed before he had to take my wrath for the Mike White thing?
I guess the storm hit. I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Mike White, who I might add shares my birthday on top of everything else. Yeah, and you kind of stole my thunder here a little bit, because Braxton Berrios was going to be the guy I would point out as a surprise cut.
Okay.
Because again, if I'm pointing it out, it's not. If I'm predicting, it's not a surprise, right?
Yeah.
You look at the running back, Jeff Wilson Jr. I don't think would be a surprise. And if you look at those are the two positions where, to me, they're the deepest and have some surplus, is running back and wide receiver. Isaiah Wynn, if I want to throw out somebody crazy as a surprise cut, he didn't participate in any of the offseason practices that the media was allowed to watch. Are there issues here with him recovering from the injury he had last year? Could that lead to him getting cut? I'm not just spitballing right now. You asked me for a surprise cut, so I figured I'd give you a surprise name. Guys I'm going to be watching, there are two guys that jump out at me. On defense, it's Chop Robinson. I want to see what the dude's got. I kind of like what I saw at times from him in the offseason practices. And the guy who intrigues me on offense is Jody Fortson, the tight end they got from the Chiefs, who the first practice that we saw that we were allowed to watch, it was like, damn, that dude looks apart. And he made a couple of plays. I think it was 4 or 5 practices we were able to watch in total in the spring, and I'm intrigued. There's something there.
Yeah, because I'm surprised no one's named Julian Hill as a surprise cut, because Jody Fortson could take his. I think Jody Fortson has a shot.
But I can tell you the Dolphins love Julian Hill, and Julian Hill showed up in camp. I asked
try to slide him on the practice squad.
Good luck with that. He looks almost like a smaller offensive tackle. I mean, I asked John Embry, the tight ends coach, at one point, is it me or did the dude like completely bulk up over the offseason? Because he looked wide.
Big, yeah.
And John Embry told me, no, he's the same weight. He's just worked on his body and now it's stronger. But he looks strong.
Hopefully he's a little faster, because he takes about 4.4 to get going on his 40. Never mind get down and finish the 40. So, because if he can I agree with you. At that size, we all know he can block. If you can offer something after the catch, at that size, that's an intriguing prospect. BallGame, who are you watching the most, and who would be your surprise cut?
I don't think it's a surprise. I think the fact that they drafted those kids at the wide receiver position to bring them in, those guys have unique skill sets that are refreshing in terms of, and they got young legs. So I don't see Craycraft and Braxton Berrios actually probably making it out of camp, to be honest with you. I think Taj and Malik gonna actually be guys that they're gonna look to fill out this room, because they got specific skill sets that they bring to the table with that youth that Mike covets. And then when you factor in, man, I don't know. I would have to go with as a surprise. Yeah, I'm gonna go with an offensive lineman, Isaiah Wynn, right? I think there's a lot of. I think they got a lot of guys that they like.
But
right?
what's everyone's plan here for behind Isaiah Wynn? Robert Jones and Lester Cotton? Are we crazy?
Well, you got one of the best coaches in the game to coach them up. I think those guys really rise. I told you, coaches ride on ego, man, and they feel like they can take a coach and they can change they can change a player into something sometimes, or even get the player to believe that he's something that he's not. And you know, as long as the guy's serviceable and not getting his butt whooped every rep, he's gonna have more quality reps probably than bad ones. It may not always look pretty, but as long as they're effective, then that's all you really need. And he's not the one getting your quarterback killed. So sometimes you know, I don't know what Isaiah Wynn's issue is physically, but you know, I know that there's gonna be some competition at both of those guard spots. So I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go. You know, and, you know, kind of one of them deals. So,
guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. Between X/Twitter and YouTube, we're at about 950 of you watching right now. So smash that like button, subscribe for new. We're 2 men down. All right. We have more, you know, we look like the Miami Dolphins and their health issues right now. And the offensive line is just dropping like flies right here. Dougley hit me up and he lost his power or whatever. So,
storms be for real. Boy.
Yeah, for real. Right. And Alan had to leave. So, guys, let's wrap this up. Do you have any final thoughts? I want to thank again Alan and Doug for joining today. Do you guys have any final thoughts? And just a reminder, people, tomorrow night, 8 p.m., part 2 of this panel, I will be joined by Omar Kelly, Kyle Krabs, Neil Driscoll, and Alf Artiega from 3 Yards Per Carry. So we got 2 great nights of back-to-back Dolphins content and content creator super panels. So any final thoughts from you guys? We'll start with you, Richmond. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Man, I'm just I enjoyed the show. Thanks for having me on with those guys. Like I say, you know,
hey, they voted you. Don't thank me. Thank the fans, brother.
No, well, even like the fans, you know, I always like to listen because you can always learn from people's different perspectives and this and that. And the part 1 of this show, you know, had some really good guys give great input and stuff you think about and this and that. So I was just happy to be a part of it, and it actually went faster than what I thought. And most of the time when you're getting good content and good information, it typically goes that way. But, you know, to be able to come together, everybody's respectful and have a decent show, I think that's what we should be working toward. And I think that's the good thing I commend you on by bringing it together, because when I think you put the poll out there, it was not about who the fans wanted. As long as they accepted, you brought them on. So I think this can help bring the community together, and I'm always about positive stuff like that. So great job from you, great job from my man Mr. BallGame. I'm just glad I was part of it tonight.
And guys, you know, we had almost 1,000 people in here between X and YouTube, and we were going up against the NBA draft. So the Dolphin fans,
that's pretty good.
They came out, and I want to thank y'all for coming out and supporting. Make sure you come out and support tomorrow. BallGame. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, my friend?
I mean, I'm gonna stay consistent, bro, with my theme, which is don't believe the hype, don't buy into all these false narratives out here. Like there's division. People want to spend division between the tour and the organization for a reason, because it makes for good content. You know, at the end of the day, the player has the right with his representation to try to seek the best deal possible for himself, and the organization has to do the same to ensure that they're protected as well. It's never personal, but the business aspects of things sometimes have to go through these processes, and as long as you understand that, you can take a different appeal, you know what I'm saying, a different mindset about it, right? Obviously, we all would prefer to him to already have gotten a deal and have it out of the way so we don't have to deal with this, but it's not the first time that we've ever seen this actually unfold in other organizations. So I'm actually at a point now where I'm happy that we're actually in a position, because it's been 2 decades since we had a quarterback that we even considered actually wanting to put on in a position like this. So that tells me that, one, we're in a good space, right? And we got some of the problems some of the other better organizations have, you know what I'm saying? And then from there, you know, just take it all in stride, man. We're a month away from actual football content starting up again on a real consistent basis, and you know that just trend upward, man. Good positive energy out here. You know, keep
For
all
sure.
of the foolishness down to a minimum. That's all.
For sure. Shout out to Franklin Higgs. He says, cut Danny Crossman. And God's Child wanted Poop to do the thing here or whatever, the little
That's a heart.
the little heart. So I did it for you because he's out of here. I want to thank again Alain Poupart and DouglieDoWrong for joining us tonight. And also thank you, Richmond and BallGame. Always a pleasure. Every Wednesday, you can catch us at 7:45 p.m. for the finish line. And then tomorrow, like I said, it'll be live at 8 p.m. with Neil Driscoll, Omar Kelly, Kyle Krabs, and Alf of 3 Yards Per Carry. And we're going to do it all over again as we complete the content creator super panel for all of you guys, the Miami Dolphins community that voted on it. And just a reminder, you guys voted Big O. I will have a one-on-one episode with him coming out in the near future. Do me the favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. There's still over 900 of you watching. I want to thank all of you for coming through and taking some time out on your Wednesday evening. And until next time, as always, you already know what time it is. Fins up, go Fins, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Take it easy, everyone.